draws that articulate. Basically, your imagination and, well, skill is the only limits. Now, there are some things to remember. For one thing, you're going to need to have a power source. In this case, that means batteries. Batteries are heavy. Batteries get hot. And if you've ever worn a fursuit, I don't know how many of you have, they're hot to begin with. Now, there are some places, some things you do that will keep you cool, just if nothing else, location. Frankly, if you're going to have an articulation, it's going to be in your head. And that's the hottest part, so you're not going to want to have the batteries in the head. Good place, it's along your hips, or, well, yeah, basically in your hips. You can put them in your back if you really need to, but this is the best place to put them. Next thing is you're going to need some type of solenoid, motor, servo, something. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Welcome to the club. Neither do we, but we're just going with it.
To be honest with you, I'm making this up.
There's a whiteboard out there.
Oh, there's Arrow. So it's
Awesome.
I like
Soupy.
the LEDs, that's fun.
That's awesome. So yeah, if you can tell us how you made that one. How do you
No, you're
control
ruining the magic. Flicking on it, so.
How do you control the ears?
So, I'm not Joe, who's supposed to be doing this panel, but I've been doing animatronics for quite a while. Errol is a computer-controlled gizmo. He's got 2 computers in him. And my daughter says the other night, well, you know, we should put some fiber optics whiskers on him. So I ended up going through and okay, I'll put some whiskers in and put some fiber optics in there. But meanwhile, the whole thing gets rebuilt. So this is a work of art that keeps on going and going. I don't think I ever get finished on it. The thing with animatronics is you can do it really expensive, like the Disney route, and then you can kind of do it the cheap route, which is kind of what I've done. I haven't really spent a lot of money on this stuff. They're mostly hobby servos that you get at the local RC stores and things like that. I generally get a lot of it online. It's one of those things that can be just simple, or it can just, well, as you know, it can go crazy too. Just, one thing adds on to the other. So he's got over 16 motors in it. And when you actually look at him a little bit from the back, you can see that there's a lot of electronics and wires.
Hold
and
on,
things in
flap up.
Hey, careful with that flap.
Oh, wow.
I would bet that kind of makes him heavy.
It's not too bad. He's got 1 battery pack on him. You should see the rest of him. This is just the head. Okay, but I built a computer myself. I'm not using the Arduino type of system that a lot of people are using. But they teach that in school these days, so it's kind of common. Everybody knows how to program those now. But I use a slightly different setup, and it's a lot more work. Best to use the Arduino. I mean, all the little things are already done for you. So when you start something like this, you probably start simple with the ears that move. And all that's there is just the 2 servos underneath, and they rotate the ears back and forth. So that's probably the simplest thing to do with a head, and you can probably retrofit most heads with that. So you can go. The next step is the eyes. The eyelids are really hard to do, but really there's just 2 servos on either side, and there's kind of like a shell that goes down over the eyes and back and forth.
Can you actuate it to show us?
Mm-hmm. They're kind of on a little electronic control, so if you watch it for a while, you'll see them.
Are they on the timer?
Yeah, the computer goes, like, the idea with Errol is I wanted him to be like a living, breathing creature. So he breathes, he's got eyelids that close, his eyebrows go up when he's interested. And, this is all done with a computer, so you can see his nose goes back and forth when he breathes. So, and that's the eyelids, and that was something I added this year, was the bottom eyelids that come up. I gotta say, it didn't work out as good as I'd hoped, but,
Now, am I seeing it correctly that you have the eyes also?
yeah, there's,
rotating?
now, okay, we go a little bit more complicated. There's a gyroscope in it, so if you move the head, the eyes follow the head.
That's so cool.
With an inertial. Interesting.
It's a gyroscope, actually. You can buy those little boards from different electronic places, but they come with those Arduino kits and things. You can buy them as a shield that goes into them. If you know the system a little bit, you kind of know what I'm talking about. It can get really, really complicated and very sophisticated, but you know, hobby servos are simple and easy to do. Now, Joe, when he did his, you have to see his, and I really hope he shows up tonight, because his is an incredible thing, which doesn't use any electronics at all. His motors are real motors, and they're from car window operators and things. And his head is robust like crazy. You don't break that. It's done with aluminum shell and everything. This is really quite impressive. Mine, yeah, one fursuit game, and well, he's in the lab for a while getting fixed. So, but so anyway, so that controls another part, another computer on my back, which runs the tail and all the lights on the wings. You'll see it at the dance. There's sound controllers in them that, you know, when you hear the loud sound and all the lights sort of flicker in time with the music. It's a lot of fun to dance with him, he really is, you know. He's, I go just more for actually seeing myself, you know, because the lights, that's really quite the show. The last thing I did, I don't know if I can make it work or not. Just a sec here. Is it this one? One of these two.
Oh.
Not yet. Maybe this one. The hardest thing is how the heck do you control all these things, right? Once you get all these electronics and things. Joe has a bunch of tongue switches, which is really cool.
I actually saw those today. They are pretty cool.
And
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like on the top of the back of the palate of the mouth. And he pushes them with his tongue.
I don't know if you can see it or not, but he's letting off some smoke.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Can you see it okay?
Yeah.
Very subtle, yes.
Oh, wow.
Is this a mist or?
So cool.
This is a glycerin and water mixture. You can see it on the internet, right? They show you how to do that. And it's, you know, it's a non-toxic thing, but it's actually quite effective, right? You know, there's a little fan in the nose that blows the smoke out.
Well, that would have to draw a lot of power to do that, right?
Good thing you asked, because I'm sure you've seen those electronic cigarettes in the stores these days, right? There is the perfect smoke machine. I mean, inside, the front part that screws on has the
Buy the
heater.
nicotine free, of course.
Yeah, you can buy the different. But the front part has a little heater in it and a cotton wad which is filled with glycerin and water mixture with whatever flavoring you get. The back part of it has a battery in it, a 3-volt lithium phosphate battery. And when you, this is the cool thing that I just can't believe, there's a little sensor that when you breathe through it, it turns the heater on and it lights up a little LED at the front to make it look like the cigarette's glowing at the front. So I took one apart, and I have one here in his jaw. I don't know if you can see it or not, but right there is a little smoke sensor right there.
Okay. Okay.
And it's, the cool thing about them, I wasn't sure whether it was going to work at first or not, but you know, you can suck okay, but I hate smoking, so, but I found out that you can actually blow across the sensor and get it to work the same way. So blowing through it the other way around will turn it on, and then you can use that output again in an Arduino or whatever electronics you want to use. But it's enough to run a heater. So to answer your question, 1 amp at 3.5, 4 volts does the job. So, but you know, if you have a 5 amp hour battery or something like that, that'll last you a long time. You're not going to use the smoke all that often. So I have one battery pack up on the top here in his head, and the tail has 3 battery packs. And the tail is not working all that well. I was hoping to show that off a little better.
So
But
how much does the battery pack weigh?
well, you can get those really light ones. The lithium phosphate ones are really light. You know, like the ones they use for helicopters and things like that. Yeah, you do a couple of grams, right? They're very light. But they don't last that long. That's the only trouble, right? You charge them up about 10, 15 times and they've already lost half the power. The nickel metal hydride ones that I'm using from just Radio Shack, or yeah, it's Radio Shack down here.
Also, nickel metal hydride doesn't explode.
Well, they're not as bad as alkaline batteries. Those ones definitely do. If you use alkaline batteries right to the very end and leave them sitting around with no charge, they'll definitely explode. And I've had that happen a couple of times. And hydro, that's where I work with BC Hydro. They have these big boxes of batteries that you bring back for disposal. Every so often that box explodes and batteries all over the place.
What do the animatronics actually start running around online, say? Like, even if it's just for simple moving use?
Yeah, and if you look at, there's a couple of really good websites out there. I know somebody has a tail here. There's a Wolftronics website where they have these kind of tails with servos and everything. And you can buy parts for it, or you can just talk to them and get the plans for making it. There is also a fellow called Tio. He's from Germany. And he also has a really good website on how to build it. He shows the shell of the head with the servos attached. And you can sort of see it's the screen mesh that he uses. And then he's got the servos attached, and he shows you how to do an animatronics ear. I based my eyes on his plan because they're pretty much the same as what he did. And he's also got plans for doing, other, like for snarling, making the nose curve. So a really interesting website. TIOH is the name. Look him up on the internet. He has a couple of, he has a wolf, or is it a fox? I think it's a fox he does. And I think that's called Fuso. And then his rabbit is Tio. And but all three of them have these animatronics in it. And he started this many, many years ago. So he's probably got something even better on lately. But if you were first starting with a head, it's really easy. But if you're retrofitting something, it's a lot harder. So I don't know how many of you are actually thinking of starting this from scratch. Yeah? No, that's good. Starting from scratch is awesome. Then you go, okay, well, I would like to do this, I would like to do that. And you can already see where you have to put the mechanics of things. And you can plan the fur around it. But if you're retrofitting something, it's just so much harder because all the linkages and everything, they kind of have to go into
Your existing head.
Yeah. and he's kind of a lot of retrofitting, and you can sort of see from see the eyebrows as they move?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that works with his mouth. So his mouth has a little position sensor that if he opens his mouth, then his ears go back and his eyebrows go up. And the retrofitting for the eyebrows, I have 2 aluminum pieces that go up in a semicircle and then 2 linkages that go down the side. And I had to install 2 servos down here under the cheeks. So, but that was a bit of doing, right? Because you have first you get the fur all off. And me, I'm a hot melt glue gun guy. Okay, it takes a bit to get the fur off without doing a lot of damage. But once you get that apart and you get the servos in, don't glue anything down. That's my recommendation at the beginning. Don't actually put it in stone until you try it a few times, because you're always going to say, hey, I really would like to do this a little differently. And then if you do it, I always tend to, it works. I'm going to glue that sucker down and she's done. And then, yeah, like you say, right? And you go, she's darn it all. I shouldn't have done that. So it's really worth the extra effort to make little plexiglass brackets for the motors and things. I've done that for the eyes now, and I've got a lot wiser as I get older. And so now I have little brackets for mounting the servos on, and the brackets I glue on, and it's a lot easier to get the brackets off of the servos. The other thing you got to watch out with servos is that they are electronic gizmos, and they do sometimes not what you expect them to. They're if there's any noise or anything around, they do kind of don't turn properly. So I spent a lot of time trimming the computer a little bit to try to make things so that I didn't go out to lunch when the battery voltage goes down. I'm sure you know what I mean, right? If the battery normally starts at about 6.5 volts or something like that, computers are pretty happy with that. Down around 5 volts, so the computer starts to go, you know. But as soon as the servo starts up, then the battery voltage drops immediately, and then the computer goes nuts, right? And that's what I have sometimes when the batteries go low, then the eyebrows go, the eyes are all over the place, and I have to sort of disappear off the dance floor, plug them in for an hour, and charge them up.
So how do you choose servos? Like when you go on a website and you see a list of servos and they all
Yeah.
have different names and specifications, what are you looking for?
Quiet is the thing,
Right.
but you know what, and you notice one of my servos isn't working so great on the eyebrows. They have really, really tiny ones, almost this size, right? About maybe 1/2 inch cubed. Those guys are incredible. They're quiet, and I've used them for the eyebrows, but they don't have much power. So if you're doing something simple like just moving one strand of hair or something like that, they're great. But if you're trying to move an ear, they're not powerful enough. And the eyebrows, as you can see, are actually not powerful enough either.
Seem to be doing good.
The irises for the eyes gives you the other problem. Let's see, I think it's the middle switch here. Oh, this one here. Sorry, it's a little easier when you're wearing them. Where's that switch gone?
So you have manual switches for?
Yes,
Not
for
manual,
overriding the
manual
computer
switches.
control, right? So, okay.
Legal here?
Yeah, where are you?
Do you need to put it on?
Yeah, maybe I should. That's on. Okay. He actually has a little servo for his irises that open and close. You can see he's got irises in his eyes. And there's a servo that actually narrows the eyes, so it sort of focuses in on something. And that thing is loud. It's really embarrassingly loud when you're in a panel and that happens. It's just everybody, what the heck was that, right? So that's another thing with the servos. You know, sometimes the servos are really noisy. And the new digital servos you buy now, they're really nice servos, but they make a lot of noise. They're okay for the tail, but in the head, you know, you hear it twice as loud as everybody else does.
One idea to keep down the noise is if you can use muscle wires.
That would be great, but they use even more power than the heater. They're 1 amp at 5 volts each, and you know, they not very fast either, right? Have you used them before, the nichrome ones?
There's several brands out there.
Yeah, they're basically a coil of heater wire, right, around the membrane. They work great, and I've seen a lot of people use them for other things, but they'd be a little slow for a lot of things, but you might be able to use it for something that doesn't require that much speed, like the nose or something like that.
Regarding servos, could you like cover them, like surround them with a little fun foam or something to dampen down the noise?
Yeah, it's a good point, and of course that's you try to do that, and then you find out that the servos actually generate quite a lot of heat, especially if they're doing quite a lot of work. And the one in my tail, for example, it does so much work it overheats. So it's a digital servo; it shuts down if it gets too hot. But that one, if you've got any foam around it,
It'll overheat.
yeah. The ones in the eyebrows are the same, or sorry, the eyelids. They're very, very small. Oh, I'm very sorry about that. I'll just hang up on that one, sorry. The ones on the eyelids are the very small ones I've been telling you about. And I had to actually add metal pieces on there to dissipate the heat from those because they get really, really hot. And I've had a couple of very embarrassing times when I go, what's that funky smell? That's not a smoke generator. I know that. It's kind of, oh crap! The servo was burning up in my head. Just I quickly run off the dance floor, and sure enough, in the air, there's this smoke coming out. And oh, does that ever reek? And the servo is
Now you
just
have to put a fire
totally
extinguishing
melted.
system in there.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that worries you a little bit when you got all this electronic stuff in. Like, what does happen if it starts on fire? So you do want to make sure you can get your head off in a hurry if something like that goes wrong.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's become an impromptu panel anyway. Questions and answers. sensors.
Oh no, I was just came over from Denny's. I found Mountain Blue, so.
Oh, great.
So I sent a text message to somebody else at the table. So fingers are crossed that he'll get here.
Excellent. We're looking forward to seeing him. He's got an awesome fursuit. That guy's got amazing.
Yeah, and he has it with him. So.
Oh, great.
So,
Looking forward to seeing it.
All right, I'll text him. Make sure that he gets right over here. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much. It'll be good to see him.
So how long have you known him? Have you been working together on animatronics?
Well, it was kind of more by accident. We were in Vancouver at Halloween, and he has this pretty cool tail that you know lights up with the music and so. Wow, that's a cool tail. And then he said, "Well, watch this. I can blink my eyes." Wow, that's really neat. Because his eyes are really neat to see them blink. There's like a little shutter that comes from the inside and goes all the way over his eye. So, and then he's got little eyebrows, little pieces that go up and down on the eyebrows. And that's the one fursuit he has. I think he has another one too.
Tell me about the tongue switches in there.
The tongue switches were another one. I had who would have thought? Right? It was a
What
great
do you
idea.
use
Yeah.
for a tongue switch?
It's become quite popular to use the brain control one. What's your opinion on those?
They're pretty slow. And somebody around here has a pair, right? I thought I saw a pair sitting on the table.
ones?
Yeah. Wasn't there a pair sitting
There's a
here?
couple of people walking around with them.
The lady who sells them out of LA is here.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, there you go. You can have a look. But you'll find they're kind of kludgy and hard to use. They're very slow. But you do get trained on them. I've tried them a couple of times and forget it. They didn't do a thing for me. I nope. Damn ears didn't do a freaking thing. So,
I've heard they work on some people and not on others.
yeah, I guess it must be something with the skin, you know. But anyway, so I sheepishly handed them back and said, "Oh, gee, I'm sorry, I really can't get them to work." She put them on, and it's just a funny thing. So, but yeah, no, if you get a chance to try them, they're really fun to see. But I think before we get to brain control, we've got a lot more work to do. You know, maybe 1 channel, 2 channels, but if you're trying to control like a whole facial expression, there's just no way you have enough. You know, maybe on your forehead you could put a couple of electrodes or something. I always had the thought that maybe your entire forehead could become like a sensor or something, and you could maybe control the skin of different areas of your forehead. Maybe before I'm totally out of the game, I can try that.
I was considering trying to put flex sensors on various parts of my face with like stage glue.
Yeah. Have you tried?
I haven't gotten the flex sensors to read properly
Yeah,
on my
exactly.
Arduino yet, so.
I so know what you're going through. It's so hard. You know, like you can use these strain gauges, which are basically little flexible pieces of plastic which change resistance as they move. But they're pretty hard. You know, you stick those on your eyelid, and that's, you know, you feel after 3 or 4 times you go, oh, that freaking hurts. You know, I take that off. But how good are you moving your ears?
For me.
Little micro switches. But think, everybody, like what is the part of your mouth that moves the most? Is your jaw, right?
Jaw and tongue.
Your jaw, and like you say, your tongue. Those are probably the best bets for activating things. Your jaw can go up. You can go forward. So you've got quite a few degrees of movement in your jaw, and if you can use your jaw to make things move, that's maybe 3 channels. The blow sensor, if you blow into it, that could be another channel.
And you can get 4 operations off of that, I know, because I've seen people operate wheelchairs.
Right.
4 different settings off of just a blow.
And that's really cool, but it's hard to learn how to use, and you know, I still get the darn things confused and blow off smoke when I really want to move the eyes or something like that. But you know, you really have to admire the electronics that's out there that you can actually get a hands on. Too bad that stuff's so expensive. It'd be nice if you could go to one of these medical companies and say, you know what, I wouldn't mind one of those blow sensors. But nope, can't just get that. And then like,
have you ever thought about using like hobby grade lithium polymer batteries?
yeah, I have, and they're really nice. You know, I look at them and go, boy, those are nice. But then, okay, there's 6.5 volt version of it, there's a 7.5 volt version of it, and a 9 volt version, and lately I think it's up to 18 now you can get.
Yeah, depending on how many cells are in it.
So you buy an 18 volt one, you gotta get 18 volt servos. You get a 6 volt one, and the 5 volt servos that are the cheapest in the store shelves, well, they're over voltage by 1 volt. They can stand that, not too bad, as long as you don't overload them too much. You can buy 7.5 volt servos, they're a little more expensive, and they work with the 7 volt polymer batteries. But then you go, okay, but the computer only takes 5 volts or 3 volts.
Still
Oh,
need a-
rats! Now you gotta
regulator.
reduce the voltage.
Well, I mean, with like Arduino, you can get like voltage step down boards and all that. for it.
Yeah, that's right, the little regulator circuits and things. And if I were you, don't get the cheapo ones, get the ones with the little converter circuits in them, because they allow the battery voltage to go right to 3 volts almost before the computer finally shuts down.
Yeah.
And the cheap ones, the battery drops from 6.5 to 6 volts, and they already drop out of the computer. And like I said, just starting up one of the big servos is enough to drop the voltage enough below that. And then the Arduino, what it does is it resets, it starts the program all over again. So, which is okay, like if you design for that, but it can also be a real pain in the neck, because every time the servo starts, the thing stops, and then the Arduino restarts, and then moves the servo a bit more, and it just stops again. So that's definitely, you know, getting the higher voltage battery for the computer is worth it. But like a lot of robots, robot people are finding out, is 2 batteries are what you need. You need a higher voltage battery and a lower voltage battery. Keep the servo electronics completely separate from the computer electronics. And that way you don't get the noise from the servos going into the computer. So, you know, does that kind of answer your question a little bit? I know it's always more complicated than you think. You go, darn, I wish it was simple. But, you know, if you had the chance to get lithium phosphate batteries, or even the lithium iron phosphate ones, get the higher voltage ones and the more expensive servos. They're lots more power, and they don't use as much, you know, the battery lasts longer. And then get a 9 volt battery or something for the computer. And then we have to figure out a way of communicating between the two, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, like the original Puppeteers and Jim Henson's character creators and things, they had an entire crew of puppeteers following this guy around. You know, he had a guy wearing the head, you know, he had the servos and everything, but it was all done radio controlled. And the puppeteers would follow behind with little joysticks. Maybe one guy would operate the mouth, and the next guy would operate the eyes, and the next guy would operate the ears. You know, and I go, wow, that was amazing. But nowadays, we're to the point now where, you know, the Bluetooth, you can wander for 200 feet and still have it being operated by a computer somewhere. We're to the point now where you don't need all that anymore. It can all sit right in the head. And if Jim Henson had had any thought of what we have available to us today, he would just go crazy. Think of what he could have done. You know, he would have done some really amazing things. Any more quick questions? Any?
Yeah.
Before, it used to be the coordination of the team had to be amazing. But if you don't have one person do the entire thought process and carrying it out, then, you know.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's lots of retakes. You idiot, you turned the wrong button, you know. You're supposed to blink his eye, nuts.
He must have had a lot of patience.
Oh, can you imagine? He must have. And plus, he must have enjoyed his job tremendously. You know, I admire him all over the place for some of the stuff he's done. It's just really, really cool. That's why I'm doing this stuff.
So strong servos, are there any of them that are also very quiet? Things versus for flat lanes or something like that?
The ones with the metal gearing are normally the most quiet, and the smaller servos are the ones that are most quiet. It's possible to make the digital ones more quiet at a cost to the accuracy. You buy but you have to buy the programmer that goes with the servo itself. So you buy the digital servos, and there's this other little gizmo that connects to your computer, and then you can program the servos. One of the things you do with the digital servos is they're very accurate as they come from the factory. But if you put any force on them, they buzz and whine because they're trying to put the thing back into the original position. But on a fursuit, you don't really care where the tail is, as long as it's over a little bit or one way or the other. So in that case, you know, maybe you can just forget about the bandwidth and just program it for really wide so that, you know, they don't keep trying to put the tail or the ears back in a particular position. So then they're really quiet. The other thing that I've done on the tail, and you might want to think about too, is to turn off the power when you're not using the servos. When it's not wagging its tail, you may as well turn off the servo power.
So I have a switch.
Relay, actually. But yeah, something like that. So if the relay drops out the power, now the servo can freewheel, so the tail can move all by itself, and the servo will turn, but it's not using any power, and it's not making any noise. But as soon as the head tells the tail to wag, then the relay picks up, servo is powered, and now it's driving the tail. And I would really suggest that system seems to be working really well.
Our torque limits, into a lot of the servos.
They're incredibly powerful. Here he is now, the man of the hour. Come on in, Joe.
And he's gone.
But literally, those servos can rip your arm off. They're so powerful.